Welcome again. This is the second half, I think final, of digital modeling, and it's a World of Duchame series. I'm going back to, this is part two of this city ruin with caves underneath it. Uh, Kind of a self-generating, kind of interesting scape that I can use for renderings, I can use for just conceptual design. Um, Art is pretty much a conceptual exercise for me, so whatever I lay my hands to will work. So we'll get started on this. You can see here, basically, we did build some above ground structures from the script above here, the flag script in the early scenario, the ground, the undulating kind of desert scene, and that was the script for the actual top building. And all I've done in this one is really drag down the top building, done a little bit of adjusting to it, added some spiral staircases off of a simple demonstration online. And you can follow it down through the script the same way that you follow it down through looking at it. And then in my bottom area, which I've made this cave system, I've generated a script using Hoop Snake, which I thought was interesting, that I can go in and randomly generate a kind of underground cave system. If you can make it out here, maybe if I could just hang on, pop onto those poles. Well, they're not going to come through so much. You can kind of see them here. Maybe I'll go to top view. And it's a little abstracted here, but basically I can go in the Hoop Snake, set my difference to maybe 4. I'm building points. I'll try and make sense of this for you. Have a certain amount of iterations, and it's nice. I can just go in and I can run that script, and it will generate different. Uh, uh, Maybe if I can find a pattern that actually shows it off. X-ray, pen and ink. No, I thought X-ray would do it, but I guess not. Rendering's not going to do it either. Shaded, not so much. Wireframe, not so much. I guess it's just because it's in the Grasshopper window, so there's not much I can do with that. Anyway, looking through it in the rendering mode, top view, well, it's just not too good. Maybe perspective is the best way to go about it. You can kind of see this as this random hovering generated cave system, and if I go back in, you can change the the starting times, the distances between those. If I bring that up to 6 and run that again, I'm going to get a totally different script as they kind of run through those caves. Enter from this point, enter from that point, and I'm doing a Boolean difference that actually carves out that negative system for you to kind of meander through and get lost in. So it might be fun to take farther into gaming or something like that, but I'm just using it for renderings and conceptually carrying off some ideas I started 30 years ago. That said, you can always seed that differently, which is probably the easiest way to change the patterns. You can see how much manipulation you have of that underground kind of system to meander through, which can be kind of fun. And that said, that's about it. So let's just take it from the top of what was happening. I'll put it on this one so we can see what's going on. The first script, like I said, was I have it disabled, but it was a flag to symbolize it. It was that first building I had shown, stretched across a pretty cool landscape. And I'll keep my shift on so you can kind of see that building as it's kind of pops in there. And I've undulated this landscape just because I was showing a demonstration of it a little high. I'd probably bring this down to a very flat plane on top, which seems to do a little better. And you can take the ripples and find patterns that make some pretty cool sign patterns across the surface, like wind-blown surface. So I was doing that in the last one. And then over here I had, what else had I done? I basically took the script and dropped it below, and in dropping it below, it allowed me to go back in and manipulate that again and put up another structure, which I changed. And this one I blew out a little more. So that's the underground structure compared to the top one. So if I grab shift all the way through here, you can see you have an underground structure sitting on a lower level than this one. And all I really did was take a script for a spiral staircase, I believe, right here, which I can add to it, and that's been transplanted to stick in here. And it's pretty random how it comes down from the bottom curves. So if I wanted to have more staircases coming in, let me try and make sense of this. Let me go into here and decide in a rotation numbers. I think it basically would be, what did I use? I used some maths. Yeah, this maths to kind of minus it. I think that, well, that gets the position and manipulates the curve of those staircases and plays with those. There'd be something farther along in the staircase of actually how I scaled those staircases larger and smaller. And what I wanted was how often that I bring them to it. So if I followed this off over here, which is the orient, I have to follow the orient back up to here and see where I want to orient. That's going to lift and lower the staircases from orienting. And then my list index, I'm not sure what would happen as my list index if I went in here and grabbed that geometry there. Maybe I'll just take it off so we can see the whole thing. Oh my gosh, I get lost in here so fast. Let's put our list index in there. Yeah, you can see where you're starting to reference different areas for that to come. And that's not just those areas. You follow that back up and maybe even play with the loft and the sides to that. Kind of tricky to think what I'm actually doing. No, that's just lofting and lowering the bottom screen if I wanted to. Anyway, you get lost in the script as you build it together. I kind of group them. It's how my mind works. I'm not here to teach. I'm here to kind of inspire people to be creative. Think of some things they can control with the maths of what they're doing. I'm not sure what would happen if I move that. Oh, that really has a strange jitter on a surface, and I'm not sure what I've ended up putting a bug in there for that. Kind of interesting to think about. And I'm looking off here at my zero index wrap. I think this is actually the one I wanted because I wanted to send those staircases to different areas, but that's basically putting the building, orienting it on a BREP faces or edges, so that's going to have an effect on it as well. Sorry to get a little chaotic there, but I don't mind getting lost in my own script. It's kind of fun. That said, you keep going down through it. What I pulled out here in this section was looking at the maths to try to understand some of the geometries as I'm looking at. It's an extrusion. It's a very simple extrusion, and scaling those staircases into that extrusion. But let's drop a little bit below it, and we end up in this extrusion. And I think I can basically show that on the Z, following it back up. Where do we get? Oh, those are the staircases again. I'm going to have to jump down into this script. I thought it was pretty simpler than that. Where was my script? That's the rotation of the staircase, how far I wanted to put that around. I already played with it. Well, there should be something in here that allows me to have that extrusion. There's all staircase information here. So maybe if I look back up here, solid union, that extrusion, that's the Z I was looking at in the domain. I'm following it back here, chasing it. Of course, nobody knows where my eyes are going when I'm doing things like this. It's going to have a major effect because it's got a Boolean union on it after. That's all the building changing. Well, I sure popped that in and changed the geometry of that and had it actually intrude into the building above it, which actually isn't too bad, and I like those lower staircases. So just play with it and push it around. You don't have to stay to one iteration or another one. This is really the extruded surface here, so I would have to chase that one back up to here. There's the extrusion. There's the negative the negative Z direction. That's the data, and it sometimes helps to click on it, but you can see I'm following it back. That's going to give you my extrusion that I was looking for. So you do end up getting lost in these things. It's got a little bug because every time I move that Z, it's got to re-affect that Boolean. So you get into the habit of either right-clicking here, going to edit, changing your numbers here. It will move a little quicker if you do that. But you can see the extrusion doesn't encompass the maze underneath it. So the maze is kind of more visible to see right now. I would have to end up drop that down below it in order to see it encased in it. And then you kind of lose it because of our geometries. But I like it. These kind of caves move in and out. And you can kind of see in there how you'd be lost in there moving around in through those tunnels, which is kind of nice. And I don't mind that scape there. That's actually not too bad with a little hint of the, we'll have to see what it looks like in rendered. I did want to show a little bit what was going on down here as I had the second surface plane. This, I was talking a little bit as the hoop snake. I thought it was pretty ingenious. Well, it's not that ingenious. It's the hoop snake comes out with a 6 item, and the script is so simple. It's just adding that script to itself. And in doing so, it gives me a number that I can jitter. Now, that's not hard to generate a number that adds to itself and jitters out of order and then becomes the X value on a point, the X attribute of a point. Because what you end up doing is you end up having this really cool kind of, maybe if I go to top view and you go into my points, you can see what my points are doing. I'm basically building them from a hoop snake to generate this data, and then I'm simply taking that data, putting it through a revolve, doing an iteration through it, and piping that. And I try to do too much more than spheres and pipes on lines. And you get this pretty cool geometry here. And if once you have that set and you've run your iteration count to whatever you want to do, as soon as you change seeds, you can see how that dances and becomes another tunnel pattern wherever it goes. So that's a lot of information. That's where my mind is. You know, you could reach out to me. I mean, I'm not doing these for any more than really exercising and learning as much as I possibly can. What I like to do is grab these snippet tools and periodically go in there, and there's the hoop snake walker one, which I kind of consider what it actually is. It's walking through a path and making these tunnels. It all comes from drawings I'd done over 30 years ago from simple scripts. That were done on graph paper with a pencil in the hand of a young teenager, and now I can take it to this kind of knowledge, and I find it pretty interesting to do. So with that, I can kind of select the, I like the blue and orange renderings. Just select the building you want to do, select the ones you want to actually have as things you've done to control, maybe pop something off, get a kind of surface building. Actually, I like that building. Hit shift to get that in there. And you've got this kind of strange scape that's, I don't know, pretty interesting to look at, to consider what I've ended up making. I'll take this down here and I'll extend this over, and I've got a pretty cool little screenshot if I want to have evidence of something I'm constructing. I don't think that'll come out in the screenshot, but it's not too hard to send it the snipping tool and grab yourself something. Hope you enjoyed that. I was kind of getting lost in that. I'm going to end that series of that building, and I'm actually going to go on to a port town next, which is called Airport. And for my friend Dave Sheehan, he may remember that well. It's kind of, we never made it past that city. Well, maybe we did. But I'll come upon a dock that's randomly generated with kind of a ship-like ideas with buildings going up a hill behind it and ending up in a swamp. So yeah, you got to have something to begin with. Let your mind wander, build some geometries. I'm going to take a still of this one, see how I like it, pop it up online, and share my files if people want them on GitHub, and keep talking to people, and hopefully get a good subscription going and people following me, and see what I can end up moving forward on.